Hello everyone, my name is Caleb Pittman and I'm the musical director for Expect Excellence, and today we're going to be going over basic musical notation. Now the first thing that we want to make sure everyone understands is what exactly is a note? Well, a note just tells us how long to play for. So looking at our first note here, this one's called a quarter note, and the quarter note, it's equivalent to one beat. Okay, now a beat is something that's very different than a second. We want to make sure that when we're talking in terms of music that we're using the term beats instead of seconds. Now, why is that? Well, you see, songs can either be played fast or they can be played very slow. So for example, so you have a very quick, upbeat, fast song, or something very slow. See, songs are not tied to seconds, which are an unchangeable time. It can fluctuate. And so that's why we want to make sure that we're using the term beats instead of seconds. So our quarter note is equivalent to one beat. Now moving on to our next note, that one's called a half note. And our half note is worth two beats. Moving on to the next, we have what's called a dotted half note, which is worth three beats. Now, something to remember is when you see a dot that is out to the side of a note like this, that dot represents that it's always increasing the value of this note. So if that dot wasn't there, that would be just a half note. With the dot is now considered a dotted half note, which just increased the value from 2 to 3. Now remember, it's if the dot is out to the side of a note. If you see a dot that is underneath a note or on top of a note, that is very different. So, see it out to the side, increasing its value. Now lastly, we have our whole note, which is worth 4 beats. So, given those examples, if we were to play quarter notes in succession, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. You strum every beat because it's only worth one beat. Now if we moved on to a half note, we would hold it for 2 beats. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Dotted half note, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And then lastly, our whole note, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the longer it is, the longer we have to hold out that note for. Now, we do actually have some notes that are worth less than a beat. So these notes are going to be played a lot faster. So this note here is called an eighth note. Now an eighth note is worth 0.5 or half of a beat. So every time that I strummed on the quarter notes, I could fit 2 eighth notes inside of a quarter note. So for example, let's start off with some quarter notes. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I were playing eighth notes here, I could fit 2 strums for each single strum of the quarter notes I'm hitting. So here we go. 1 and 2 and 3 and So you do have notes that are worth less than a beat. So you see these a lot in music, and that's when you're hearing those fast movements or things that are progressing really quickly. You have eighth notes. We even have faster notes like 16th notes, 32nd notes, and they keep getting faster and faster. But the ones that you see here today are some of the most common that you'll generally see in a piece of music. Now I do want to show you one more thing. So these two notes here are just two eighth notes connected together. We have this bar that goes over the top that connects them. And many times eighth notes follow each other. And so we put a little bar on top of them, and it's just a little bit easier to read on a piece of sheet music. But we can have quite a few of them connected together. Those are all eighth notes, just all connected together. So 1 and 2 and. Okay? So anytime you see that on top of, it's not a different note, it's just 2, 3, or even 4 eighth notes following each other. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. We're going over some just very basic musical notation. We're going to be getting into a lot more of music theory and understanding how to read sheet music and how all that stuff works. But thank you for joining us, and I hope you all have a great day.